Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the continuation of the discussion on the foundational texts of Indian philosophy. This meeting will be recorded and it will be posted on Zoom, on YouTube. So if you have missed any of the previous discussions, you may find it on YouTube. Also, there will be a question and answer segment at the end of the discussion session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. Please use the raise hand feature of Zoom in order to maintain the queue. Also, if you are not speaking, please mute yourselves in order to minimize the disturbances. Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupini avataravarishthaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. So in the last session, I mentioned a few important points about the problem of reading or depending upon translations for our understanding of Indian philosophical systems. And I mentioned something about the uniqueness and the importance of the spiritual potency of the original statements coming from ancient scriptures. And also the importance of learning from traditional teachers who are part of this succession of what you call parampara of this philosophical or cultural hierarchy. But that doesn't mean, it never means that one cannot understand the spiritual ideas or the philosophical ideas by reading translations alone. One need not be a Sanskrit scholar to understand the deeper implications of any philosophical system which have a spiritual aspect, spiritual implication. Because at the end of the day, our ability to capture the true meaning of a great statement in philosophical literature depends upon our own fitness not only in terms of intellectual preparedness or knowledge of the language or anything, but rather the state of our mind. I can give you an example. In fact, I gave these examples much earlier. A man like Paul Brunton could capture, appreciate and understand the essence of Advaita Vedanta, though he did not know Sanskrit at all. And if you read his works, or even the works of a great Western Indologist, a German Indologist like Paul Deussen, who of course he knew Sanskrit very well, and even there are others who perhaps did not know much Sanskrit, or a man like, I gave the example of Henry Thoreau. In Walden you find many wonderful ideas which demonstrate that Thoreau did understand and appreciate some of the higher teachings of Bhagavad Gita. So it is not absolutely necessary or essential to study Sanskrit or to study from a traditional teacher to appreciate the spiritual implications of a great philosophical idea. For that, what we need is our mind should be ready, our mind should come to such a level of, what you may call it, a vibration, where we naturally feel an affinity to some of the deep spiritual ideas coming from any tradition. So I want to make this statement very clear, because otherwise you would have led to some misunderstanding. Fundamentally, it depends upon our own samskaras. If according to all religious traditions which originated in India, like Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, Jainism, or anything, you find there is a great relationship between our ability to learn, and on the one hand, and the doctrine of karma and the doctrine of reincarnation. So if you have already accumulated a lot of samskaras, which are conducive to a proper understanding of the deeper aspects of a philosophical system, then you naturally capture, you feel at home when you intellectually, even superficially, when you connect with that idea. The example is a person whose only acquaintance with Vedanta and Bhagavad Gita was through a very imperfect translation of that book by Charles Wilkins, who did not know much Sanskrit. So that's an important thing. So more than language learning or scholarship in any language system, it is our own samskaras, our own spiritual preparedness that makes us ready for understanding the deeper underlying implications of a philosophical system, which are deep spiritual connection. But at the same time, there is a problem. In modern times, especially in this age of internet, people frequently believe that they can write anything on any subject, not on physics or any scientific technological subject, but they can write anything on philosophy. You just should have enough energy and a sufficient level of recklessness, and then you can write anything on anything. If you want any example, you can read the bloggers, internet, somebody who may declare himself to be a doctor in medicine, and he says he's going to give a talk on, or maybe he's going to write an elaborate thesis on Vedanta or Christian mysticism. So it is very outrageous in a way. So that's a problem which I was pointing out. But at the same time, a true seeker of truth can immediately connect with the spiritual implications of Upanishads or Buddhism or any of these ancient spiritual traditions without any understanding of Sanskrit language. We can give many of the great disciples of Swami Vivekananda. The greatest of them, I think, among the Western disciples, the greatest disciple of Swami Vivekananda was an Irish revolutionary, Margaret Noble. She did not know much Sanskrit, but she just listened to one lecture by Vivekananda, mostly something related to Jnana Yoga in London, and that was the beginning of a new life for her. So how do you explain this? The deep-rooted samskaras, we make them ready to appreciate and immediately connect with the spiritual implications of a great tradition. That's enough. Now coming to the next subject. There were some questions which were raised in the comments, and also some emails also came to me. They were asking about this question, why should there be any difference between the 7 schools of Vedanta? That is Shankara, RāMāNUJā, Madhva, Nimbarka, Vallabha, and then of course Chaitanya, Baladeva, and like that in recent times, Swami Narayan, and there are many other teachers who were supposed to be teachers of Vedanta, not only Shankaracharya. So why should there be this conflict? So for that, I have to give a short background, some information about the evolution of Indian thoughts. Partly from Western academic point of view, because many of these ideas were first articulated by not Indian Sanskrit Pandits or Vedic Pandits, but by Western, mostly European Indologists, beginning with Keith, Goldbrook, and then, of course, Max Muller, Thordison, MacDonald, and others. So that's one thing. And also modern Indian academics also taken up this. I'm not saying that this is 100% authentic, but it should be always appreciated to analyze the evolution and growth of Indian thought systems from a Western perspective. So that's what I'm going to give you. So that itself will make it very clear why there are so many views on a single topic. So many philosophers have so many different views on God, and nobody is excommunicated. Nobody is sent to the guillotine. You can imagine, Ramanuja comes forward and says that Shankara is wrong. The Madhvacharya again says Ramanuja is not 100% correct. And then again you can find so many philosophers from Dvaita tradition, Advaita tradition, and also Viśiṣṭādvaita tradition. They have this continuing intellectual, or what do you call, the dialectical exchange, dialectical warfare, beginning with Shankaracharya in 8th century, all the way up to 16th century with the coming of Madhusudana Saraswati. There were so many different views. First of all, there were conflicts between Shankara on the one hand, and then Ramanuja, Dhanapati Suri, and Vedanta Desika, and then afterwards Madhvacharya came. He took up the cudgel, and his own followers like Jabadi Tirtha, Jayatirtha, then Trivikrama Pandita, and of course later the great Vyasa Tirtha who wrote Nyayamrita. And again, on the Advaitin side, there were Prakasatmayadi, the Vajaspati Misra, then Apaya Dikshita, and Vidyaranya, and then Jikasha who wrote Khandana Khandagadya, then Sukacharya who wrote Tattwapratipika, Nyayabodha written by Ananda Bodha. There were so many scholars and philosophers from the Vivarana Prasthana, Vivarana tradition, Bhamadi tradition, and also from Vartika tradition who tried to refute the views of Dvaitins and tried to defend Advaita. So people ask this question, why this problem? The problem is very simple. In Indian philosophical tradition, you are 100%, you are welcome to question the philosophical views of any tradition. You don't have to be afraid of the hellfire, the guillotine, or excommunication, or inquisition, or burning at stake at all. You don't have to become an intellectual martyr the way Martin Luther, his entire system he tried to completely refute and go away from the Catholic Church, and it became an entirely different tradition. So that kind of thing never happened in Indian tradition. That's because truth is one, and you can have different views. So I'm coming to that. So the first movement, the first stage in India's philosophical tradition, an Indian tradition, philosophy and religion often got intertwined. So it was not only philosophical but also a theological tradition. So according to modern scholars, the first stage goes back to the early pre-Christian, pre-Aryan times. It's called Mohenjo-daro or Harappa tradition, where they found in the ancient Indus Valley civilizations, they excavated many images of Shiva sitting in yogic contemplative posture, which shows that it was actually not a non-Vedic culture. It was neither non-Aryan. Rather, it was an early period of Vedic tradition. And then the second stage was the period of Rigveda Samhita. And Rigveda Samhita, as you know, it is the mother of the Vedic tradition. So many of the Rigveda mantras are found in the Aranyaka portion, in the Upanishadic portion, and also many of the Rigvedic Samhita mantras are also found in Mundaka Upanishad, which is actually a part of Atharvaveda tradition. Dva Suparna, Sauja, Sakhaya, Samanam, Vriksham, Parishvasjadi. All these great ideas, which are all purely Advaitic, purely monistic and idealistic. They are found in Rigveda Samhita. So the second period goes to the time of Rigveda Samhita. And Rigveda Samhita, if you study the Samhita proper, there are altogether more than 1,000 suktas, apparently nearly 1,100 suktas, almost 11,000 rigs. There's a huge book, 10 mandalas, and even the inscription that you find outside our temple, which was built in 1905, the first Hindu temple in the West, that Ekam Sat Vipra Bhagudhavatanti, it was the inscription put there by Swami Tattwamayanandaji when he built this temple in 1905. It's just a part of the entire mantra. It means Indram Mitram Varinam Aktirahu Atho Divyasa Suparna Gurutman Ekam Satvipra Bahudha Vadanti Atnim Yamam Matarishwanamahu. The most important part is Ekam Satvipra Bahudha Vadanti. Truth is one, she just calling by different names. So this underlying principle should be clearly understood. That's why if Ramanuja comes in 12th century and differs and gives a different view, contrary view, different from Shankaracharya's view, absolutely no problem. That is Ramanuja's way of or understanding of or appreciating of the same Ekam Sat, one truth. And after Ramanuja, many others came. So this should be understood. The second period is the period of Rigveda Samhita, if you look at the whole evolution. And it is also found in other Vedic mantras, even in the one important verse which frequently quoted from Taittiriya Upanishad, Sayaschayam Purushescha Aso Aditya Sa Ekakha Sa Ekam Vid. You can find this comes in Taittiriya Upanishad. That Atman which is in me or which is in him, the same Atman is there in Aditya, in Surya. The divine reality that is within me is within you, it is within everything. It is also in the higher regions, the celestial beings like sun. So the all-pervading and the transcendental and the immanent nature of the Supreme Reality. This is an underlying principle in Vedanta. So when Ramanuja or Madhva, Vallabha, Nimbarka, somebody else comes later on and gives a contradictory view, there is no problem. That is an important thing. And the third and fourth stage are related. Then the period of Itihasas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and also the period of sutras, sutra literature. The early Indian schools of philosophy were first codified, they were composed in short, pithy statements called sutras. Sutra is just a small little statement. It should be very brief. It should convey a definite meaning, and it should, once it is explained, it should leave no doubt. Alpaksharam asandigdham saravad vishwato mukham. Like the astova manavidyamcha sutram sutra vido viduhu. What is a sutra? Sutra is a little pithy statement. It is alpaksharam, just a few letters. And it should give a complete meaning, leaving no doubt. And also it should be approached, it could be approached from different angles. It could be interpreted. And this interpretation is to be called bhashyas. So all the astika darsanas, what you call shad darsanas, like Uttaramimamsa, Purvamimamsa, Badarayana was the teacher of Uttaramimamsa and Jaimini was the teacher of Purvamimamsa, Nyaya Vaisheshika. So Kanada was the teacher of Vaisheshika and Gautama was the teacher of Nyaya, Indian logical system, and Sankhya Yoga, Kapila, and later Ishvara Krishna, the teachers of Sankhya system, and Patanjali was the system of Yoga system. The Astika Darsana, I mean the orthodox systems, which do not reject Vedic testimony, which upholds allegiance to Vedic tradition, and also which accepts the doctrine of karma and the doctrine of reincarnation. Astika Darsanas. So they were all written in sutra forms, small city statements. And also Mahabharata, which came little later. And then we have from 6th century BC onwards, we have these two unique schools of Indian philosophical systems. the four schools of Buddhism belonging to Buddhist tradition and the Syatvada of the Jaina tradition. That is Shunyavada, Vijnanavada, Sautrantika and Vaibhashika. Two schools of idealism, two schools of realism. So from 6th century onwards, Buddhism also started making great contribution to this philosophic system. So even among them, even among Buddhist schools, there were great dialectical differences. For example, Sautrantikas and Vaibhashikas, they differed in their perception of the nature of the reality of external world. One group believed in pratyaksha pramana, in direct perception. The other believed in inference. So they themselves wrote books refuting each other's views, but they did not start a war on account of that. So when they wanted to challenge a different school, some great Pandits sat there with a great resolution and wrote a commentary refuting his views. That's all what he did. And the other party also will write a book refuting the other's views. I give you one example. Madhusudana Saraswati was living in Benares, and a great teacher, Dvaita teacher, was teaching him Nyayamritam, which is a very, very important dialectical work. Vyasatirtha was the author of Nyayamritam, and actually these definitions of Mithyatvam and its counter definition, all these are found in these are important parts of the Advaita Siddhi that he wrote, Madhusudana Saraswati wrote. To Nyayamritam also Vyasatirtha tried to contradict and refute the definitions of Mithyatvam given by Padmapada in Panchadeshi, then by Prakashatmayadi not in Panchadeshi, sorry, Panchapadika. So Panchapadika was the great book written by Padmapada. There he defined Mithyatvam. For example, I Sadasattanadhikaranatum va Mithyatvam. So Mithyatvam is indescribability. It can be said to be real in the absolute sense or unreal in the absolute sense. So it can be defined anivachaniyatvam. This is Padmapada's definition of Mithyatvam in Panchapadika. And another man wrote Panchapadika Vivarana Prakashatmayati. Then Vivarana Prameya Sangraha. Like that went on. So finally, Madhusudana came. And and there's a reason why Madhusudana wrote this Advaita Siddhi. Before him, another great Madhva, Dvaiti dialectician called Vyasatirtha. He was actually the Raja Guru of the great Vijayanagara Empire. And also he was supposed to be the Guru of the great musician of Karnataka. It's called Purindradasa. So the Vyasatirtha wrote this Nyayamritam. And there he refuted Padmapada's and Prakashatmayadi's definitions and Chitsukacharya definitions of Mithyatvam. And in other words, he refuted the views of Advaitins. And then when Madhusudana was living in Benares, he studied this Nyayamritam. This is a Dvaitic book, magnum opus of Vyasatirtha, very famous book, dialectical work. He studied this from a Dvaitin teacher, Madhvacharya's followers. And then, after several years of studying, at the end of his study, and when he finished the book, next day he brought a Guru Dakshina, paying tribute, as a token of gratitude that you give to a teacher. And you know what he gave? A refutation of what this Guru taught. Because Madhusudana was studying this great dialectical work written by a Dvaitin, a dualistic philosopher, Vyasatirtha, in which he refuted Advaita. Madhusudana was a great champion of Advaita. And the teacher knew this man is an Advaitin. And the teacher taught him thoroughly thinking that he will be able to convert his student to Dvaita. At the end of the course, which had lasted several years, it's a very important book, Madhusudana brought his Guru Dakshina, token of gratitude. You may call it tuition fee to give to teacher. So what he did, it was a refutation of the very book that his Guru taught him for years. And the Guru blessed him. And that blessing made Advaita Siddhi one of the most unique dialectical works belonging to post-Shankarite period. Now can you imagine, let's say, Martin Luther writing a refutation of the Catholic Church and presenting it to the Roman Pope in Rome. And the Pope blesses him. Oh, you did a wonderful thing. You can't imagine that. Can you imagine Martin Luther studying from Pope or maybe one of the cardinals in Rome, the College of Cardinals in Rome, all about Christianity and Catholic Church. And after studying for several years, giving a Guru Dakshina, that is refutation of the views of Catholic Church, and the Pope blesses him. Wonderful, you did that. You can't imagine that. So that is the uniqueness of India's dialectical tradition. I'm giving an example. And that Advaita Siddhi continues to be the most important dialectical work belonging to post-Shankara period of Advaita Vedanta. So this is a history. So similarly, in modern times, you find in 19th century, one great Indian leader, Balagangadhar Tilak, he wrote Gita Rahasyam. It's a commentary in Marathi language, commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, in which he upheld Karma Yoga as the central theme of Bhagavad Gita. It's actually a different view from Advaita, because Advaitins consider Jnanam, spiritual knowledge, as the central theme, because Arjuna became inactive because of ignorance. Ignorance can be removed only through knowledge, and that knowledge is Atmajnanam or Advaita Anubhuti. So Tilak actually contradicted him. Gandhi also wrote a book which is not exactly, in line with Shankaracharya's view or RāMANUJΑ'S view or Madhvacharya view. Gandhi's approach was entirely different. Of course, Mahadev Desai played a very important role in writing that book, putting in English language. So Aurobindo wrote a book, Dr. Adhakshan wrote a book. So what I mean to say, writing a book with a different perspective was the very essence of the intellectual tradition. It's all because truth is one, and you are welcome, you are free to give your own independent view. Maybe totally a contradiction of my view, but you are welcome. This is an important principle to keep in mind. So I wanted to give this background because I received one or two emails asking for an explanation. Why should there be so many views about God? Because that's just because there are just 8 billion people on this planet Earth. So 8 billion people can have 8 billion different views on the supreme reality because they belong to 8 billion different levels of spiritual evolution. That's the idea behind. But truth is one. We are evolving towards the supreme reality. Now we are coming to subject, the subject where we left last time. I was trying to give a brief description of RāMANUJA'S system, its greatness and its distinction in comparison with Advaita. So one important difference is in Advaita system, intellectual knowledge, scriptural studies, reading of books and study of scriptures by itself, it does not bring knowledge. What it does is, it removes ignorance. So what is the role of light? The light, so let's say suppose a dark room, you bring a flashlight or you switch on the electric light. So what does the light do? The The light doesn't produce light. The light destroys darkness. So the role of bringing light is removal of darkness. And that removal of darkness is what we normally call light. Because light is the natural pristine nature. Darkness is a foreign body, is an intruder, is a guest, is something that comes in. So when you switch on the light, when you bring light, the light does not produce an object that you mistook to be something else or that you did not see when there was not enough light. Rather, the light only removes the obstacle that stood in your way of perceiving what was there in front of you. Similarly, of course, in the language of Bhāshyakara is Jnanam tu Ajnana Nivartakam or Shastram tu Ajnana Nivartakam. Shastram tu Ajnana Nivartakam na Jnana Pravartakam. Shastram means scriptures. Shastram only removes Ajnana. So study of Upanishads, Vedas or the Bible or the Jewish or Christian or Buddhist scriptures or Hindu scriptures, any scripture. The reading scriptures itself has a limited role. It removes from our mind wrong notions about the reality. And when the wrong notion is removed, what is left behind is the right notion. So when darkness is removed, what remains is light or correct perception. That's because the truth is not coming from outside. The truth is already within us. And because our mind is not pure, a lot of wrong notions are crowding in our mind. And that prevents us from correct understanding. And that ignorance, the dark shadow of ignorance, not being able to understand the nature of reality, that dark shadow should be removed. And if there is somebody running away, when light comes, that person, the person who runs away in the presence of light, should be darkness. That's why all books only help you to remove ignorance. They do not produce knowledge, because knowledge is already within you. The old example, if there is a piece of rope lying in a semi-dark room and you mistake that rope for a snake, when you bring light, when you switch on the light, you understand that it is not snake but it's only a rope. So when you bring light, you are not destroying snake. What you are destroying is the darkness which was the cause of our misunderstanding. So that's why Shastram tu Ajnana Nivartakam na Jnana Pravartakam. Shastram tu Ajnana Nivartakam na Jnana Pravartakam. But at the same time, RāMāNUJā will tell you, Rāmānuja's view is somewhat different. Rāmānuja says that Shastrasya Satyavadatte Tasya Tattwajnana Sadhanatvam Asatya Satyupattehi Asambhavad. So Shastrasya Satyatva Eva Tasya Tattwajnana Sadhanatvam. So Shastram is Satyam. Shastram itself is Satyam. In Shankaracharya system, study of Shastra is important, but that's only means. But that doesn't contain the supreme truth. The supreme truth is experience. We'll explain that later. That's why Shastrasya Satyatva Tasya Tattwajnana Sadhanatvam. Shastram, books, is source of knowledge. According to Advaita, Upanishads, all it is called Shastras, different scriptures. The scriptures are not necessarily the source of supreme spiritual knowledge. The source of supreme spiritual knowledge is our own experience. Sutya, Yuktya, Swanubhutya. You may study scriptures, you may use your reasoning power, your mind is pure because you attain sadhana chatushta sampatti. And then what happens is, when you reach that stage, then when you later practice sarvana, manana, nididhyasana, etc., then slowly you attain, your mind becomes ready, and when mind is ready, jnana prapti comes. But there is no cause-effect relationship between what you do and knowledge. Knowledge is already within. The obstacles that stood in the way of our understanding our own swarupa, our own true reality, those obstacles just go away. When you study scriptures, when you practice sadhana chatushta sampatti, then sravana, manana, nididhyasana, etc., karma yoga, etc., then we attain chitta shuddhi, and then jnana will come. And that jnana leads to moksha. So this is an important thing. And another important, that's from epistemological point of view. According to Advaita, अर्थज्ञान साधनी भूतानि प्रमाणानि प्रत्यक्ष अनुमान उपमान शब्द अर्थापत्ति अनुपलब्धि रूपाणि षड. So there are 6 pramanas in Advaita. Arthajnana sadhani bhutani. To understand, when you study scriptures, then you can use this direct perception, then inference, analogy, that is comparison, then verbal testimony, then presumption, that is arthavati, and anuvalabdhi, negation. So there are 6 pramanas. I explained this elaborately in the earlier sessions. So Vedantins, Advaitins accept 6 pramanas. And of course there are different views, even within Vedanta system and within non-Vedantic systems. For example, the Bhatta school of Mimamsa also accepts 6 pramanas, and Prabhakaras accept 5 pramanas. But Vedantins, Advaitins accept 6 pramanas. In contrast to this, RāMāNUJā says, Arthajnana sadhini bhutani pramanani pratyaksha anumana shabda. That is, pratyaksha pramanam, anumana pramanam, shabda pramanam. Direct perception, inference, and also what the scriptures tell you. That's very important for RāMāNUJā system. So for them, these Nālayana Prabandhas, these 4,000 statements from the ancient Tamil sages, and also of course, the Vedas. So they call it Ubhaya Vedantins. So that constitutes the Shabda Pramana. And then along with that, they also accept Pratyaksha and Anumana. This only from the purely epistemological point of view, theory of knowledge. And then Advaitins say, Pramanasya yajnanam jayade tatra antakaranam jnana abhivanjagam bhavati. So this is an important point, remember. So this, what the Advaitins believe, suppose you practice certain disciplines. That is, I mentioned earlier, the sadhana chatushta sampatti. That is, Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, Ihamutra Parabhoga Viraga, Samadhi Sarka Sampatti, Mumukshuttam, and also Sravanam, Maranam, etc. So you first practice these disciplines, that is what is absolutely real, and that you accept. Everything else you renounce. Then you don't have any desire either for worldly enjoyments in this life or maybe afterlife, and then your practice of these internal and external disciplines, mental disciplines, that is Samadhi, Sakka Sampatti, Shama, Dhamma, Uparadi, Diksha, Siddha, Samadhanam, etc. All these explained earlier. And then Mumukshuttam is strong desire for spiritual liberation. And then reading scriptures, understanding meaning, and contemplating on the meaning, Sravanam, Maranam, Nididhyasanam, etc. So when you do all that, and you also make use of these pramanas to understand properly the meaning of scriptures. So pramanasya jnanam jayate tatra antakaranam jnana abhivanjagam bhavati. So when we do this, then our antakaranam, in a general term, antakaranam, or you can say our buddhi, becomes pure. Antakarana, internal organs, mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. Mind, intellectual discriminative faculty, then our sense of identity, ego identity, and of course the chittam is a repository of memories and impressions. They become pure. When they become pure, naturally we feel we have this inner experience, that is, we are not the body-mind complex. Behind the body, behind the senses, behind the mind, behind intellect, there is one supreme reality. That's our true nature. Everything else is only a vyavaharika satta. It's only relative reality. This is not an intellectual conviction. It's a natural experience. It doesn't come from outside. It actually is there, but all the obstacles are gone. Yet sakshat aparokshat brahma. Yet sakshat aparokshat brahma. So aparoksha jnana means it is not pratyaksha, it is not paroksha. Pratyaksha means direct perception. You cannot understand the supreme reality by making use of the mind and the five senses of perception. It's not direct, it's not pratyaksha. But it's not indirect either, because it's our own nature. So this knowledge, it's from in our own system, it manifests, is so prakasha. It self-manifests when antakaranam is pure. Then this pure antakaranam itself becomes a means for realizing the supreme truth. But Ramanuja takes a different view. Pramanaihi jayamanam jnanam cha vastuta eva jivanishtham. So according to Ramanuja, whatever knowledge you get, you study scriptures and you make use of these three pramanas. That is pratyaksha, anumana, sabda. It means direct perception, and then you use inference, and also you read scriptures. In Advaita system is something very interesting. Anything that is pratyaksha jnana, whatever you perceive through the mind and senses, for that very reason it is not absolutely real. Because whatever is objectified by the mind and any or all of the pancha jnanendriyas, senses of perception, for that very reason it cannot be paramarthik satta, it cannot be absolutely real. Ramanuja says, no, it is real. So for that you find later when you understand Ramanuja's concept of mukti, for example, Ramanuja totally rejects the very concept of jivan mukti. So he doesn't accept the concept of jivan mukti. And also there are many different views. There are very different views between Ramanuja and Shankara's system with regard to the status of prarabdha karmas, etc. at the time of jnana. Again, paramatmanaha sakashat abhinnanam jivanam api paramatmadeva jnanasurupatvam natu vastuto jnanasayatvam kintu antakkaranubadhikam jnatrutvam. That way he says jnatrutvam na vastunaha. This is very important. So, paramatmanaha sakashat abhinnanam jivanam api paramatmadeva jnanasurupatvam. So jivas are inherently, essentially non-distinct from Brahman. That is, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, Jivo, Brahmaiva, na aparaha. So according to Advaita, is an important article of faith. The Jiva is essentially, inherently, essentially, by its time nature, it is non-distinct from Brahman. It doesn't mean that we are all Brahman. But what is within us? Within us, if devoid of this body-mind complex. So, that is the central principle in Tattwamasi Mahavakya. That is the Upadesha and 8 examples you find in Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter, Tattwamasi Mahavakya. So, in 9 khandas, there's a long description. We already discussed this earlier in my classes on Chandogya. So, if you look upon this body-mind complex, certainly we are not Brahman. We are not absolute reality. We are not the absolute divine reality. But if you think of a jiva devoid of, independent of, detached from body-mind complex, that is what we call Puryashtakam. That means Ajnanam, then Avidya, Kama, Karma, and Jnanendriya, Pancha Jnanendriya, Pancha Karmendriya, Pancha Mahabhuta, and then so if you take these all away from jiva, what manifests in the jiva is actually non-different, non-distinct from Brahman. That's why Paramatmanaka sakasat abhinnanam jivanam abhi paramatmavadeva jnanasurupattam. So jiva also has got this jnanasurupattam. But not as jiva, but as Brahman. Nadu vastudo jnanasetu. Because that knowledge, the realization comes when the antakarana is ready, antakarana is pure. That is why kintu antakarana upadhikam jnatamtum. Now, according to Ramanuja, it's a totally different view. Ramanuja says, Paramatmanaka sakashat bhinnanam. Bhinnaha paramatma sarira bhuda jivaha. So, a very important principle. According to Ramanuja, Paramatmanaka sakashat bhinnaha paramatma sarira bhudaha jivaha. So, jivas are actually different from Paramatma and Brahman. The Paramatma is an indweller, is andaryami in all jivas, in all jagat also, but jivas as such are not the same as Paramatman. There is no abhinnatam. There is a categorical distinction between jivas, individual souls, and Paramatma. Jnana Surupa, Jnana Gunakascha iti tesham vastudaha eva jnatrittam. So these jivas themselves can really understand the supreme truth without the help of antakarana, etc. Of course, we have already studied earlier in Ramanuja's system either bhakti or prapatti. Bhakti in its highest state of evolution becomes prapatti. When the prapatti takes place, naturally one gets its experience. And of course later, Ramanuja will tell you, you can reach the highest spiritual experience. So, prarabdha karma kshaye shariratyage sadi surupena avasthitihi bhavati. According to Advaita system, prarabdha karma kshaye shariratyage. So, after realizing the supreme truth, when you become a Jivan Mukta, then what happens is, when the body goes away, and also when all the prarabdha karmas also are fully extinguished, then what happens is, one becomes, a spiritual seeker becomes one with Brahman, surupena avasthiti bhavati. According to Ramanuja, it is totally different. Prarabdha karma kshaye laukika shariratyage divyadeha praptya paramatmana saha paramam samim bhavati. So Ramanuja believes in this gradual graduation, that is Salokyam, Samipyam, Sarupyam and Sayujyam. And between this Sarupyam and Sayujyam, according to Bhagavata Purana, which Ramanuja doesn't refer to, maybe it was not popular at that time, there is a stage called Sarsti. So total 4 according to Ramanuja and 5 according to Bhagavata Puranas. So when all the prarabdha karmas are gone, when you practice prapatti, the sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam praja aham tva sarva bhibhyam mokshishyami ma sujaksha. The 66th verse of Bhagavad Gita. And also I already quoted extensively from different books, Rahasya Sara and of course Sudarsana Suri's commentary on the Brahma Sutras, and also Vedanta Desika on Bhagavad Gita, and also from Sribhashya, and many other books we already quoted early in the early stages of this class. That's when we talked about Prapatti and its other subjects. So the point is, according to Ramanuja, when you practice bhakti and when you reach finally the level of Prapatti, when you fully realize your own karpanyam, that is your own helplessness, that you are a destitute, at that time you do this Atma Nikshepa. So what you do is, you get rid of all negative thought currents and you uphold all positive anugulyasa sankalpaka pradigulyasa varjanam rakshasya vishwas, and also you have a strong faith, God will protect you. And goptrutva varanam tata, when you look upon Vasudeva, you can say Sriman Narayana, Ramanuja's idea of Sriman Narayana as the sole protector. Then you practice Atmanikshepa. It is the Angi, the main element of Ramanuja's Prapatti. The other 5 are their Angas, their constituent elements. Then what happens is all prarabdha karmas go away, and then you get this, your form itself becomes similar to Mahavishnu, Sriman Narayana. Then you go to Vaikuntha, and then you are in close proximity, Salokya, Samipya, and then finally you get Sayuchyam. This is Ramanuja's view. So, on the other hand, according to Advaita, when you realize the supreme truth, you are not this body-mind complex, you are actually the all-pervading divine reality. When that happens, it's almost getting back to our own home. We are not attaining anything, but we are actually discovering our own Surupa, our own true nature. That's what is called in Advaita. It is Surupa Aikyam. According to Ramanuja, it is Viśiṣṭādvaita. There is Aikyam, there is an Advaita in both, but in Ramanuja, Advaita is conditioned by Chitachit. Shankaracharya is called Kevala Advaitam. So we'll discuss this later, the continuation of this, and we can have question and answer. You are most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Seeing no hands up, I'll launch in with a question.
Yeah.
Sri Ram, I think I beat you to it, so you're next.
Yeah.
David, you as well. My question is, you mentioned this wonderful history of healthy descent in the history, and my question is, having just seen an essay by Swami Satprakashananda on how is a man reborn.
Yeah.
And you said that there was great concord about reincarnation.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there's been healthy dissent in the philosophical and spiritual history as to the mechanics of how reincarnation works.
Actually, so the question is, on the one hand, these differences and then its connection with reincarnation theory, something?
Well, I'm acknowledging how wonderful the descent has been.
Yeah.
But they all agree that reincarnation is inferred as an explanation for differences in characteristics and tendencies.
Yeah.
And in that essay from 1970, a pretty famous essay,
the
Swami speculates on why biology and heredity doesn't really explain it, and goes into some possibilities. But I'm wondering if there's been a general acceptance of the inference, or have there been healthy disputes about how it works.
Yeah, yeah. There is only one system of Indian philosophy which contradicts this, which refutes this doctrine of reincarnation and law of karma. That is the ancient Indian materialists, Charvaka system, and they were a kind of you may call it. It is not just materialism; it's a kind of anarchism, or you may call hedonism, because they believe that whatever they see in front of them with their eyes and the senses of perception, what you see using your mind and your eyes, that's the only thing, nothing else, nothing beyond. So they were a kind of cutthroat materialists. So apart from this, we call Charvakas, there were no one who ever believed, who ever doubted reincarnation and the doctrine of karma. Only the extreme Charvakas. But Jainas believed, Buddhas believed, the Buddhas and Jainas, they did not accept the Vedas as an authority, but they also believed in the reincarnation and also in the doctrine of karma.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, thank you for the wonderful question. Yeah,
Sri Ram, you're next.
yeah,
Just to clarify,
yeah.
in Advaita, the Jivan Muktas will still need to live out the prarabdha karma, but it will not affect them since they are not the karta or the bhokta at that time.
They are not affected by. Can you repeat once more?
In prarabdha karma, they need to live it out, but they will be unaffected by it.
Yeah, Jivan Mukta, I mean somebody who is liberated, one can be liberated even while living in this world, in the body. According to them, Sukha Dukkhati da Atmasarshakare Laukika Sarira Sattve Api Jivata Eva Muktihi. So, even when a person is living, it is possible for him to be liberated to attain the ultimate spiritual enlightenment. And then he goes beyond Sukha and Dukkha. So when you transcend the Sukha, Dukkha, but good and bad, happiness and unhappiness, you transcend all this. Because prarabdha karmas, in fact karmas in general, are somehow linked to Sukha and Dukkha. Good experience, happiness and unhappiness. So when you transcend both, naturally all karmas, sanchita karmas, prarabdha karmas, all karmas get extinguished. They completely disappear. They are gone when a person attained Jivan Mukti. Prarabdha karma is completely gone. According to RāMānuja, you know what happens? At that time, RāMānuja believes when the prarabdha karmas are gone, you get rid of this physical body and you get a divine auspicious body. That's what RāMānuja says. Prarabdha karma kshesh laukika sariratyagi divya deha praptya. You get some divine body. So your dress, you will be wearing this yellow cloth, you will have this, like Vishnu, you look like Narayana, you look like your deity. That is called the Sarupyam, the same Rupa. You get the same form as Vishnu, as the God whom you are worshipping. Actually, there is a great spiritual psychology behind this system. Say once, after studying Advaita, people sometimes arrogantly look down all non-Advaitic system. That is terribly wrong. Because in the RāMāNUJA system also it's totally wrong to assume that Advaita is the only way, the only truth. Everything else is wrong. Shankaracharya never said that. Only those who pretend to be Shankaracharya's believers. Actually, if you go to the 4 months that represent Shankaracharya tradition, they are doing puja every day. They are reciting these devotional hymns every day. They are reading scriptures. And they are the archetypal representatives of Shankaracharya, the 4 great months that he himself founded. But then somebody in modern times goes to some library and read a book, Vedanta Sara, which is like almost like an alphabet of Advaita. Immediately he says, I won't go to temple, I won't accept any deity, I won't care for anything else. That's a tragedy. So, remember, Advaita is all inclusive. So, if you are a real Advaitin, you cannot disregard anyone, you cannot look down upon any non-Advaitic system, you respect, you accommodate, you uphold, accept everything. This is an important thing to remember. So, what you mentioned is true. That means when you get the same rupa, I mentioned this is a great psychological truth behind. Suppose you meditate every day on one aspect of divinity. See, for example, somebody who meditates on Jesus Christ. If you can read the life of Jesus Christ as you find in Nativity, in St. Luke or St. Matthew, wherever you read, you are meeting a very fine, very endearing, very lovable, very admirable human being. That's what you find in Jesus Christ. I'm talking about anyone who reads the Nativity or anything. And then you start meditating upon such an idea of Jesus Christ. What do you become? You become a compassionate human being. Remember, this is an important thing to remember. Not when you listen to some radical, rabble-rousing things. But when you read Sermon on the Mount, for example, and you think in your mind of a man who must have given this great sermon, a great man, a very, very humane. So naturally, if you go on meditating on him, suddenly you find slowly the words you speak, your conduct, your behavior, all will have a Christ-likeness about it. Even if you try to be a bad person, you cannot be. Because that's a personality you are meditating upon, you are reading about. So, when a devotee meditates on this RāMANUJA'S compassionate, kind-hearted God idea, that person also will have some similarity. He becomes polite, he becomes a good human being. So Sarupyam has got a very important, not just physical Sarupyam, but the characteristics of the divine concept that you uphold in your mind. This is true. Buddha, if you meditate on Buddha every day, you cannot become a very violent person. You become a compassionate human being. This is what Buddha represents. So that's why RāMANUJA says a devotee attains this Salokyam. Salokyam means he is living in the world of those spiritual ideas. And also, his character assumes similar characteristics that RāMANUJA'S idea of Narayana or Vasudeva or Vishnu, whatever it is. So that's the idea behind. That's why Sarupyam. And finally Sayuchyam. This idea behind. There's a psychological truth about it. In any tradition, when you read a Talmud or Torah, Buddhist and let's say Dhammapada or anything you read, any sacred book about some great teachings, you naturally will develop some of those qualities and characteristics in your own mind. I'm talking about from a purely spiritual perspective and psychological perspective, not from religious perspective. In religious perspective, every day you can read Sermon on the Mount and you can become a very wicked human being. It's possible. But from a spiritual perspective, it is impossible for one to be not kind, to be not compassionate if you read Sermon on the Mount every day. From a spiritual perspective, that's the truth. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Good to see your hand up, David. You're next.
Yeah.
Hello, Swami.
Yeah.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
One,
Yeah. Please.
when it seems from what you were saying in today's class
Yeah.
that Ramakrishna's idea of harmony of religions
Yeah.
is not all that different from what you've been talking about today,
Yeah.
that the idea of harmony religions is actually pretty well established already before Sri Ramakrishna. Am I right about that? Or am I misunderstanding what you're saying today?
That means whatever Sri Ramakrishna taught and preached was already there, already well established early time. That's what you say.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That it seems
Absolutely. You know, Sri Ramakrishna is described by some great monks in the Ramakrishna order, Swami Apurvananda, for example. He considers Sri Ramakrishna Veda Murti, means the visible physical embodiment of the teachings of the Vedas. That's what Vivekananda also said the same thing. Why even Roma Rolla, according to Roma Rolla, Sri Ramakrishna represents 5,000 years of India's spiritual evolution, the ancient Vedic things. Because it's a natural, Sri Ramakrishna is a natural product of this ancient Vedic wisdom. Remember, the reason why you are asking this question is very logical, because before Vivekananda, nobody brought this message from India. It is, I tell you, and there is an irony behind this. The first great Indian to visit Western world, actually Europe, not America, was Rajaram Mount Roy. He came to London in 1830. He was the founder of Brahma Samaj. Brahma Samaj was founded in 1828. He was the guest, he was invited by the Unitarian Church and gave a series of lectures in London, England, and he passed away in Bristol, in England. 3 years he lived there, he didn't go back. He was the first prominent Indian who stepped out of Indian subcontinent with some higher spiritual message. But even he did not preach any of the Upanishad teaching, Vedic teachings. He had a very superficial understanding of the Vedas. And he did not accept the image worship, and he also rejected Advaita. So Sri Ramakrishna, on the other hand, you find all his life he was a priest, worshipping an image. And all his life his mind was immersed in some transcendental spiritual idea, going far beyond temples, worships, rituals, everything. So just imagine. At the same time, the same Sri Ramakrishna, whenever somebody came, he took him to the temple. He asked him to go to and pray to Divine Mother. But himself was always immersed in Advaitic Samadhi. I told you this is Shankaracharya. The Shankaracharya, who was the original teacher of Advaita, he was so busy chanting devotional hymns of all conceivable deities. There is not one God idea by the Lakshmi, Saraswati, Ganga, Yamuna, even rivers, and also Shiva, Vishnu, Kumara, Skanda, Ganapati. Practically, I mentioned this earlier, all the most profound devotional poems in Sanskrit written by Shankaracharya. And he was talking about Advaita. Just imagine. But this Rajaram Mohan Roy, his understanding of Sanskrit was very limited. And apparently he was inviting Christian missionaries to come to India and convert the Indian population. And that was what Rajaram Mohan Roy Keshav Chandra Sen also was doing. That was what P.C. Majumdar, who came to Parliament of World Religion in 1893, he was one of the speakers in Parliament of World Religion in Chicago. His speeches conclude, you come to India and please convert all of us. He will be called for missionaries. But Americans didn't care for him. He thought he can appease Americans and Christian missionaries by praising. But Americans have a very fine common sense. They could see through the game. But rather they made Vivekananda, who taught about this great transcendental spiritual ideal, and not Christianity. And Americans made him a celebrity. So you can imagine the twist of destiny. So the first great man who came to Western world, the real representative of India's spiritual tradition was Vivekananda. Nobody came before him. P.C. Majumdar had come earlier, but he was a Brahma Samaj, very lopsided. And he became very jealous of Vivekananda, as you know, very later on. He was a very senior person compared to Vivekananda. So Vivekananda was the first great spiritual teacher who stepped out of Indian subcontinent, who first came to America and then Europe. Before that, I had not even heard. And Vivekananda, the first idea that he preached in front of Americans was this universal spiritual idea, this universal spirituality. Remember, he even criticizes the church and the narrow-mindedness of Abrahamic traditions, at the same time expressing profound respect for Jesus Christ. There is profound reverence for Jesus Christ on the one hand, his admiration and appreciation for some of the great Western values, positive values. At the same time, his total rejection of the evangelical, this conversion-oriented practice. And he told them they are not real representatives of Jesus Christ. And Americans admired him for that. Just imagine. They were all Christians. They greeted, they clapped their hands, they admired him. So on the one hand, it shows the greatness of Vivekananda, but it also shows the greatness of Americans as a nation, as a people. You see? It's an important thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Swami.
Yeah.
If we have time, I'll ask my other question. Otherwise, I'll wait.
Yeah.
Can you wait, David? Shubhendu?
Yeah.
Somebody has that
Yeah,
hand
please.
up.
If you have any question, please, most welcome. Yeah.
Go ahead, Shubhendu.
Pranam, Maharaj.
Yeah, namaskar.
This is a little clarification, maybe my lack of understanding.
Could you are not visible. So if you can make yourself visible and be easy for me to understand.
Sure.
Yeah. Please.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
So maybe my lack of understanding to relate with the right example
Yeah.
in view of Shankar and Ramanuja.
Yeah.
You gave two distinct set of examples. One was about clay to pot and gold to ring, and they can be transformed back to original form in different namaru. But at the same time, you gave example of milk to yogurt and
Yeah.
seed to oil,
Yeah,
which cannot be transformed to the original form.
Yeah.
So in view of Advaita and Viśiṣṭādvaita, which example relates to what? So it's my
So okay. You are most welcome. Anytime you are welcome to ask this question. So first, to begin with, it's called the school of Satkaryavada. Satkaryavada is a name of a method of analyzing cause-effect relationship. So literally, Satkarya means the effect pre-exists in cause. For example, the pot pre-exists in clay. The golden ring pre-exists before it became golden ring or golden necklace. It exists in the effect, that is golden necklace, in nama, rupa, name and form. It already exists in gold. It is an example. Now, this is the fundamental principle of Satkaryavada. Its opposite is Asatkaryavada. Every new product is a new effect. That is Asatkaryavada. Nayayikas and Vaisheshikas, they uphold this view. So I am not extending it unless you want to know. It's a more different subject. So now coming back to Satkaryavada. It has got two forms, Satkaryavada. That is the view that effect pre-exists in cause. It's got two approaches, two dimensions. One is Parinamavada, real transformation. The other is Vivartavada, apparent transformation. Okay, the example of clay becoming pot, gold becoming golden ring, etc. is an example for Vivarta. Why? Because the transformation is not real, it is only apparent. And that means only for some time. Why? You melt the gold, it goes. You melt the golden ring, it goes back to gold. You melt the golden necklace, it goes back to gold. What does it mean? Gold really has not become golden ring in the sense that the golden ring can have an entity, existence independent of gold. It has not become something new. It has only assumed a name and form, nama rupa. That's all. So like that, in Advaita, Brahman seems to have become this world and all the jivas. But if you remove name and form dimension from jivas and all other limiting adjuncts, upadhis we call, then jiva is Brahman itself. Jiva, it means Brahman has not become jiva in the sense that jiva can never become Brahman. Every jiva, if the jiva practices, maybe not in one life but several life cycles, practices all the spiritual disciplines, the jiva can rediscover his true identity with Brahman. And that state is called Jivan Mukti or Moksha. These are one thing. So this is Shankaracharya's system. Now Ramanuja. Ramanuja believes real transformation. Real transformation is called Parinama. Parinama means real change. Example. Milk becomes yogurt. Yogurt cannot go back to milk the way golden necklace can go back to gold. An oil cannot go back to oil seeds form the way golden necklace can go back to gold. What does it mean? It's a real change. The change is real. The effect is fundamentally different from the cause. But a golden necklace is not fundamentally different from gold. You take all the gold away, you cannot have a golden necklace. But you cannot take seeds away from oil because there is no seed left. So Ramanuja believes in Parinama. Why? Because Ramanuja believes there is a fundamental difference, distinction between Brahman, God, and Jivas and Jagat. But there is also an element of identity, because Ishvara or God resides, is an indweller in all living beings. See, in that sense, there is an element of identity. But at the same time, there is an element of permanent distinction. Why? Because Jiva can never become Ishvara. Shankaracharya believes the moment you realize your Brahman identity, then you become Brahman itself. Because you are not becoming something new. You are removing all the wrong notions that you already developed. All these through adhyasa, upadhis. Then you become your real identity. So Parinama is the view of Ramanuja and Vivarta is the view of Shankara. Both Parinama and Vivarta are two approaches belonging to one central doctrine that is called Satkaryavada. Satkaryavada in general believes that the effect somehow pre-exists in cause. Its opposite is Asatkaryavada. That is Nayayikas and Viśiṣṭādvaita and others. They believe that every effect is a new product. When a pot is made from clay, they believe the pot you can use for storing water. So it has got certain utility, which is different from the utility of clay. A golden necklace is different from gold because golden necklace has a utility, you see, as an ornament. So that utility value makes a permanent change. So that Shankaracharya doesn't accept, because the utility value is a matter of function. But they say they believe Vyavaharika Buddhi brings a complete change, the status, the ontological status of cause and effect. So that is for them it is called Arambhavada. Means every new product is the beginning of a new entity. Arambha means beginning. That's the idea behind. There are many vadas. Many vada here not argument. Here vada means approaches, methods of analysis. There are 73 vadas in Indian philosophical system, Indian aesthetics, Indian literature. There are so many. I can give maybe 1 year or 2 years class on this subject itself. 73 vadas in Indian aesthetics, in the literature, and different schools of Indian philosophy, because each school has got different subdivisions. It's an entirely different subject. Okay, thank you. Namaskar.
So well explained, Swamiji. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Now we'll conclude. So I have.
Swami,
Yeah.
Maharaj, David was standing by.
Please, David, please go. David, please go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Please go.
Swami, I can ask my question next week. That's fine.
Yeah. No, you can ask one more.
Oh,
Yeah. Please.
Okay. Then is the goal of Ramanuja's philosophy then Savikalpa Samadhi?
Ramanuja doesn't believe in any kind of samadhi. Ramanuja believes that when the highest spiritual status is to stay in close proximity with God, with his own form, close to him in his own world. That's called Salokya, means going to Vaikuntha. And having God's own form, Sarupya, the same form. And Samipya, living close to the presence of God. And also Sayujyam, becoming one with God, except that you don't have all the qualities, auspiciousness of God. Otherwise, you become one with, like God. But one important thing, you get a new physical body. That means a kind of divine physical body. So I tell you, very often I am surprised by the close similarities between Ramanuja's system and also in some of the devotional ideas of Christian mysticism, the Christian experience, that idea. There are striking similarities. And many of these ideas are taken from ancient books going back to 4th century, 3rd century, 4th century BC. Some of them are taken from the Upanishads, and some of them are taken from the ancient Tamil classics, devotional classic called 4,000 Statements, going back to the period of Tamil Alvars. They wrote, the greatest of them, one of them was Kulasekara Alvar. They are not necessarily living in the geographical region called Tamil Nadu today, because some of them were living West Coast. One was a king of Kerala, but wrote only in Sanskrit. So Tamil is an ancient language in India. After Sanskrit, is the most ancient. After Sanskrit, second most ancient language of India. It's already flourished. It's produced many classical works in the 4th, 5th century BC. So it's a very ancient literary tradition. And there were a number of saints who sang, who wrote on devotion and mysticism. Ramanuja took them all. That's why Ramanuja's system may not find much popularity in some of the big traditional circles of Vedantins, because they are familiar only with Sanskrit and Vedas. But Ramanuja also accepted the traditions of the vernacular mystics. That was it's called Ubhaya Vedanta. It means he had two traditions he accepted with equal respect. Okay, so thank you for the question. Okay, so I have some input. Yeah.
Does that like the experience of Gopalarma, where she would see the Krishna with her all the time? That's what Ramanuja talks about, is the ultimate realization.
Yeah, very similar, very similar. There were many women saints in India who lived in different places who had similar experiences. Lord Krishna behaving like a child, a naughty boy, playing and irritating a grandmother. That kind of, you can find in many traditions. There are many great women saints in different parts of India. So that's why there's a charm and beauty in Ramanuja's system. In fact, Shankaracharya also accepted that beauty and charm. In many of his devotional hymns, he extols. I tell you, one of the uniqueness of Madhusudana Saraswati, the last of the great Advaitic dialecticians who lived in 16th century, he was the author of this magnum opus, the cutthroat dialectical work Advaita Siddhi. But another book he wrote, that is Gudhartha Deepika, a very big commentary on Gita, Bhagavad Gita, following the footsteps of Shankaracharya. So he brings back the devotional element of Shankaracharya's Advaita in his devotional commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And he begins his work with a statement. And he says, I have studied all the Vedas, everything, but my most beautiful, my most attractive, the most charming idea of God is the little child Krishna with his yellow cloth. The child means 4-year-old child playing flute. That is, to me, the most charming picture of God. And this is my favorable idea of God. Not literal translation, but this is how he begins his work. And he was also great Advaitin dialectician, you can imagine. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. I have a very important announcement before you conclude, please. So, next Sunday, that is February 11th, we will have Swami RΑΜΑNUJΑ'S birthday celebration. So please remember, next Sunday, February 11th, 7:30 p.m., the New Temple Auditorium, that is Villago Street, San Francisco, 4 blocks away from here, we have the birthday puja public celebration of Swami RAMANUJA'S birthday, 7:30 p.m. in the evening, February 11, Sunday. So there will be no class on Indian philosophy next Sunday, February 11. And before that, on Saturday, February 10, at 10 a.m. we are observing Swami Vivekananda's birthday. That is, remember, February 10, Saturday at 10 a.m. in the morning. February 10, Saturday, 10 a.m. in the morning, we will be celebrating Swami Vivekananda's birthday. The program will include puja, worship, chanting, meditation, devotional music, readings on the life and teachings of Swamiji, flower offerings by devotees, and a prasad lunch. Childcare are provided. Thank you. You are most welcome. So please remember, there will be no class next Sunday, February 11th. And the next Indian philosophy class will be on February 18th, Sunday. Thank you. Most welcome. Om
Recording stopped.
Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Yeah, namaskar. Namaskar. Yeah. Okay. Most welcome. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Namaskar. Namaskar. Namaskar.